which I just came from the class, we're talking about suicide, a very serious problem. It seems to be getting worse. So yes, Torah forbids suicide. Torah commands that we do everything necessary to make sure that not only do we stay alive, but we stay healthy. So we are forbidden to do things that are unhealthy, that are dangerous for our health. Certainly, we're forbidden to do anything that endangers our life. But to understand a little bit about suicide, if the Torah commands against it, that implies very strongly that it is an option. A person can choose to commit suicide or choose not to. So God can command us to make the right choice. But if it's an illness, something beyond our control, then how can you command people not to do it? Illness exempts you from moral obligation because you're not in control. You can't. So you can't command people, thou shalt not have pneumonia. So how do we treat it as an illness, or do we treat it as an option? If a healthy person, for some reason, decides to take his life, like to make a point. I remember this monk, I think it was in China, who set himself on fire in a public square to protest some injustice in the government. That is forbidden. You cannot kill yourself to make a point. That's premeditated. But of course, there are instances, probably in most cases, where suicide is an illness. I just recently spoke to somebody whose 17-year-old committed suicide. And I was offering this comforting thought that every person who commits suicide struggles with it for a long time before they actually do it. Or they make half-hearted attempts before they actually do it successfully. All the time that a person struggles with that and does not do it, and that's years, that's heroic. Suicide is definitely a darkness, an unholy thing. And to struggle with it all those years and not give in and not do it is heroic. Eventually it wears you down and you can't fight it anymore. But all those times, all those years, that is heroic. So it was not a wasted life. It's a heroic life. The amazing thing was the father found the son's writings. I don't know if it was a diary or just little notes he made to himself, but among the writings, among the notes, he found something that the kid had written about not living very long. I'm not going to be living very long, something like that. And it was written when the boy was 8 years old. So how many years did he struggle with it? How many years did he say no to it? It's heroic. Every illness, every darkness, every evil, and in this case, we're throwing them all together, lumping them all together, needs to be repaired, needs to be removed, needs to be redeemed. You got to do something with it. You can't just leave it the way it is. So let's take a simple, painless example. A person finds that he's very jealous, but he fights it. He doesn't give it expression. He doesn't let it control his life. He doesn't let it control any of his decisions. The result is that all jealousy all over the world becomes weaker. That whole phenomenon, that whole energy thing called jealousy gets weaker in the whole world. So that people who have that problem and they're very jealous, they find it easier to reject or ignore because you rejected it and ignored it. On your side of the globe, it becomes easier for people on the other side of the globe to do the same. You've taken a bite out of this darkness. You've weakened it for everybody. Suicide is a global, universal thing. It's always been around. It's everywhere, and it's got to go. That impulse, that instinct, even if it's an illness. Illnesses are not meant to remain, they're meant to be cured. Every time you say no to that impulse, you have made the world a better place because you've weakened that temptation for everyone in the world. Now, one of the reasons that, one of the arguments, I guess, that allows people to justify killing themselves, even if they're not religious, you still need to justify it. They justify it by saying it won't make a difference. If I kill myself, I will get out of the pain that I'm in, and it won't do any harm. Nobody will miss me. I'm not damaging the world. I'm just relieving myself of pain. So why not? But that's not true. It was never true. There isn't a single individual human being in this world that isn't necessary for the world. Now, Einstein made an observation about the cosmos. Having calculated the immensity of the universe and the number of planets, stars, galaxies that make up the universe, it struck him it inspired him very deeply. Not a single star, not a single planet, not a single asteroid is unnecessary. The world would not be what it is. Earth and life on Earth would not be what it is if a single star or a single planet was missing. God doesn't play dice with the universe. He doesn't let things happen for no reason. He doesn't create things with no reason. Now, if that's true of the stars, it is certainly true of human beings, because there are only 7 billion human beings. That's a tiny number compared to how many stars there are. And yet no star is dispensable, disposable. Well, no human being is unnecessary. None. So if you take yourself out of the picture, yes, you have damaged the world because your presence makes a difference. It's important to know that. Because you hear talk about, oh, life is sacred. What does that mean? What does sacred mean? It means it can't be any other way. Your life is necessary. That's called sacred. It's untouchable. The world cannot do without. So what happens when a person dies naturally? When a person dies naturally, it means you've made the contribution that the world needed. You have fulfilled your mission. But how do you know you fulfilled your mission? Well, only God knows that. So whether suicide is an illness or whether it's a cold-blooded, premeditated decision, only the only difference between them is halachic. It's a legal difference. But in terms of devastation, it's the same. The world is devastated when somebody who has not yet finished their mission decides to quit. Then there's another thing. If it was your mission to weaken this ungodly impulse of suicide and you haven't finished, then you come back. Your soul returns for another life, another chance at fighting this impulse. So you will come back and you will again have a suicidal temptation, and you'll get another chance at weakening it, or maybe finally destroying it. So it's not a mission that you can quit on, really. Because once God gives your soul a mission, you have to succeed. Whether it takes 1 lifetime, 2 lifetimes, but the mission has to happen and only you can do it, which is why you're given that particular mission. So let's not treat it any differently than a guy who works in the diamond district and is daily sorely tempted to steal a diamond. We're not all in that position. Those who are in that position, that's their mission. There are people who, for whatever reason, social or business or whatever, they're constantly faced with the challenge of committing adultery or not committing adultery. Not everybody is in that position every day. Some people are. So let's not treat suicide any differently than any other moral issue. Right or wrong, healthy or unhealthy, beautiful or ugly, bitter or sweet. We have to make the right choice. The fact that you're tempted, that is not a choice. That asks you to make a choice. The temptation is asking for you to make a choice. It's not making the decision for you. You didn't create the temptation. That's divine. That's the challenge that God is giving you. So you didn't ask for this mission. Nobody asks for their mission. And that's probably the way it should be. So let me share with you a story. I was asked to come speak, a speaking tour for the Jewish communities in Argentina. This was years ago. Flying is not my favorite activity. Long trips, certainly not. And complicated and frustrating trips, even worse. So I'm flying from Minnesota to Buenos Aires. So I have to take a flight from Minnesota to New York, New York to Miami, Miami to Santiago, Chile for some reason, and then from there to Buenos Aires. It was a miserable, very unpleasant trip, way too long, and flying is not a pleasure anyway. Anyway, it was pretty draining. So I arrived there in Buenos Aires, and what happens is the Chabad rabbi there picks me up, go to a hotel, sleep it off, and then the next day I'm ready to start working. So the rabbi picks me up. We're in the car. We're driving to the airport, to the hotel, and the rabbi says, "We're going to make a stop on the way to the hotel because there's a woman who suffered a terrible tragedy. She is severely depressed. She hasn't left her apartment in over 6 months and now refuses to talk to anybody. But she agreed to talk to you. So we made an appointment. So we'll stop on the way to the hotel and you'll talk to her." I was furious. Does it have to be on the way to the hotel? It can't wait till tomorrow? I'll talk to her. She's severely depressed. And the worst thing is, nobody warned me. Nobody asked me. You went ahead and you made this appointment for the time right after landing it. I was really, really upset. But she's expecting us, so we have to go. We come to the apartment, and it was rather obvious that this woman was not among the living. There was no life in her eyes. There was no tone in her skin. There was no energy in her voice. She was gone. She tells me the story. 19-year-old son died in a car accident, returning from their summer home to get back in town for Rosh Hashanah. And then she tells me what an incredible boy he was. Mature beyond his years, considerate, respectful, helpful, all the virtues. When she finishes, all I could say was, that was an incredible boy you had. And you had him for 19 years. She was very unimpressed. So I said, imagine that this happened without the shock element, the suddenness, the unexpectedness, shocking. But imagine there was no shock. Imagine God came to you and said, there is this soul, very special soul, needs to be born for 19 years. And I'm looking for someone to be his mother. And God asks you, would you be the mother of this really special soul? What would you have said? I was sure she would say yes. that she would have agreed to be his mother. But she surprised me. She said, if God asked me, I would have said absolutely not. So, caught by surprise, I said, well, then it's a good thing God didn't ask you. For some reason, the floodgates of tears opened up. She sobbed her heart out. And 20 minutes later, she was back among the living. She was alive again. She had that cry that she needed to have. And she was alive. Right in front of my eyes, she went from lifeless to alive. Of all my experiences in 50 years of talking to people, that's got to stand out as the most amazing, the most awesome experience. Now we're back in the car, going to the hotel room. And I realize I was so upset that they didn't ask me. Nobody asked me. They went ahead and made an appointment for me to talk to this woman. And I was so upset that they hadn't asked me. And then I realized, had they asked me, what would I have said? I would have said absolutely not. And that would have been the wrong answer, because I wouldn't give up that experience. I would not part with it for any money in the world. So it turns out it's a good thing they didn't ask. I would have cheated myself with the wrong answer out of an incredible experience. And then I realized God never asks. He gives you a mission, he gives you an appointment, and doesn't ask you. Even being born, he didn't ask you. Because you would have said no, and it would have been the wrong answer. So logically, not being born is so much easier. Logically, suicide, yes, the solution to all your problems. But that's if it was just you. Once you realize, I didn't ask to be born, so this is not really about me. I was born because God needs me to be born. And he has the confidence in me that I don't have. So we should be grateful that God doesn't ask. Because imagine if God would ask us. We would only embarrass ourselves with the wrong answer and cheat ourselves. If God would ask, how would you like to be born? No, thanks. Well, okay, once you're born, would you like a few challenges in your life? No, thanks. How about some uphill struggles? Definitely not. Would you like to get married? No. How about having children? No. What would we amount to if we only agreed to what we felt comfortable with? Nothing. So thank God he doesn't ask. Thank God he has more confidence in us than we have in ourselves. And when you think about it, almost every great accomplishment was imposed on us. Had we been asked, we would have said no. So thank God for challenging us for pushing us beyond our limits because what we think our limits are. Not true. We are capable of so much more. So give yourself the benefit of the doubt. God knows what he's doing. And if he trusts you to destroy this instinct, to destroy this suicidal disaster for the world, you can do it. You don't want to. You didn't ask for it. But when you do it, you will accomplish the most amazing thing, which you would never give up. You would never sell it for all the money in the world. It sounds a little ambitious, sounds unrealistic. Good. Sometimes you got to do something superhuman. We can. We see it all the time. We see it all the time. People rise to a challenge and do things they never thought they could do. That's life. It's common. Thank God. We are amazing people. We're amazing creatures. We just don't realize it. So we suffer from our own lack of confidence, from our own short-sightedness. You think this thing is bigger than you, stronger than you? It's not. Don't underestimate yourself. There is something God needs from you, and he doesn't expect what isn't doable. So let God choose the challenges. You find a way to rise to that challenge. And although you didn't ask for it, you would never ask for it. But when God gives it to you, you should thank him. So I learned from that whole experience, from that story, when you're asked to do something, don't say absolutely not. Say absolutely yes, and you will achieve amazing things. There's also practical things we can do. If in fact it is an illness, every illness has its cure. It's not right to say it's incurable. No doctor has the right to say that. A doctor can say, I can't cure it, and that's probably true. But to say there is no cure, don't ever believe that. If conventional medicine doesn't have something, then alternative medicine has something. There must be. And finding that cure is part of the mission. So don't let it rule the world. Find the cure that will eliminate it. There's always good news at the other end. You just have to wait till the end. And we haven't gotten there yet. So when people come and say, my life stinks. Well, till now, so far, maybe. What does that say about the future? The future has all sorts of possibilities. So even if it's true that your life stinks, that's only until today. So far, it hasn't been pleasant. But what could be quite awesome, because the darker the darkness, the greater the light that comes from it. If suicide is the worst torture that a person can suffer, the temptation, the urge, And it probably is. If that's the worst darkness, if that's the worst pain, then fixing it must be the greatest pleasure, the biggest achievement. Like orphans, people who were orphaned at a very young age, when they succeed, it is beyond imagination. They go far, much further than people who had both parents and lived a conventional, normal, healthy life. Because being an orphan kind of competes with the pain of suicidal urgings. It's your whole life. It's make or break, pass or fail. The orphans who pass, they're incredible people. More than your conventional. And a person overcoming a suicidal tendency, they're awesome. Because it's commensurate. The greater the darkness, the greater the light that comes from it. So take it as a compliment, if that's possible. God chose you to fight this battle. He sees something in you that you don't see. Trust him. When you succeed, it's your success and God's success. Everybody wins, and the world is better off for it. Can we have some interaction? Can we have some questions, comments?
Yeah, we can do some questions.
Thank you.
So let me find some. What if someone takes their life because they were forced to put others to death?
Say again?
What if others take their life because they were forced to put others to death? Meaning, like, what if someone, I guess, decided to kill themselves as opposed to killing somebody else?
A person who feels that guilty and decides that he deserves to die, and so he kills himself. That is not allowed. You're not allowed to be the criminal and the judge. Let God judge, and let God decide. To kill yourself is just doing another injustice. You took it upon yourself to kill others. That was wrong. Now you take it upon yourself to kill yourself. Again, wrong. It's time to let God decide. Because we are much too harsh on ourselves. God would be much more lenient if you let him decide. Which is another thing we need to understand. We have a sense of justice. We're humans. We're not animals. We have a sense of justice. If I feel like I was bad, I feel like I deserve punishment. If I was the worst, then I deserve the biggest punishment. That's a healthy, natural instinct. It's what keeps us good, what makes us moral. But judging is a very exact science. Not everybody can be a judge. Because to judge properly, you can't just measure the size of the sin. You have to take into consideration circumstances, mitigating circumstances. You have to take everything into consideration to be a true judge. And we, first of all, we don't know all the details. We don't know what came before. We don't know what's going to come after. We don't know. Secondly, we tend to be too harsh. When God judges, he takes everything into consideration. Everything. particularly because all of those considerations are what he himself did. God made those circumstances. So let's get this straight in our own minds. In the times of the temple, Solomon's temple, when Jews all lived in Israel, and there was peace in the land, and there was a temple with the miracles that daily happened there, and you had the prophets running around, inspiring people, reminding people to do the right thing. Under those circumstances, if a person sinned, it could be that he needs to be punished. Something's got to wake him up, shock him into realization of what he's doing. It's been 2,000 years since we've had a temple, since we've had our own land, since we've had any peace at all. It's been 2,000 years of unspeakable suffering for the Jewish people. Can we be expected to be perfect under these circumstances? Another thing, when did we agree to be Jewish, to be serving God, to be his people? When did we agree to that? When did we accept all the commandments in the Torah to keep Shabbos, keep kosher, be modest? When did that happen? 3,333 years ago at Mount Sinai. Who agreed? Who accepted? My great ancestors, 3,000 years ago. It was the first time that God spoke to a people, to a nation, to a group. Before that, God spoke only to individuals. Adam, Noah, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. The first time in history that God spoke to a people is when he spoke to the Jewish people at Mount Sinai. And you know when the last time was? 3,333 years ago at Mount Sinai. God has not spoken to us again since then. So it's been 3,000 years that we haven't heard from him directly. It's been 2,000 years since we've had a decent week. Is it at all imaginable that God is angry at us for not being as observant as our grandparents? It's not possible. It is not possible unless God is a monster. Knowing what we've been through and the fact that he put us through this makes him appreciate every effort we make, despite all odds. So we're the first ones to admit we're not as moral, we're not as good, we're not as observant, we're not as Jewish as our grandparents, great-grandparents. We're the first ones to admit it. But are we any less committed to being Jewish? Not at all. Why are we not as observant? What do we know? What have we experienced that should inspire us to be more observant? A person who is suicidal today, what inspiration is supposed to prevent that from happening? Sure, if we heard from God, that would solve the problem. If we had a consistent life where we can educate ourselves in godliness and Torah, be inspired for more than a couple of years before we're uprooted and have to go someplace else and everything is disrupted and we don't get a chance to learn. God takes that on his own responsibility. God feels guilty for what he does. He can't be angry at us. On the contrary, he's got to be absolutely amazed that we're still trying. We still want to be good Jews. Where are we getting this inspiration from? Someplace deep in our own soul. So God has to be amazed. If a Jew today says to his children, we are Jews, we're Jewish, he's a hero. That's bigger than life. Because what in our recent past would inspire that kind of devotion? Why remember that you're Jewish? Why tell your children they're Jewish? Why? For what benefit? None. It's because we're really Jewish. That is awesome. So guilt, today, we share it with God. And so God will be a much more lenient judge than we are. Here's a beautiful thought. After the flood, Noah's flood, that wiped out all of civilization, except for Noah and his family. After the flood, God said, I will never do that again. And as a sign or reminder, he put the rainbow into the sky. Every time we see a rainbow, we are comforted and reassured there will never be another flood over the whole world. What is the meaning of the rainbow? It's not the pot of gold at the end. It's a bow, like a bow and arrow. It is the shape of the bow. All it needs is a string. But take a look at which direction it's aimed. The rainbow is not aimed at earth, it's aimed at heaven. God is saying, from now on, I will take some of the blame. I will blame myself because I created these challenges. I put people through this, and if they fail once in a while, I'll take the blame. I will share the blame. And that was a long time ago. After a Holocaust, there's a rainbow. God takes full responsibility. And therefore, after the Holocaust, if a Jew fails, if we do something wrong, if we forget to do a mitzvah, God says, this is my fault. I'm not blaming you at all. And if you do a mitzvah and you tell your children you're Jewish and you show up on Yom Kippur, or you marry Jewish, or you have a circumcision, that's awesome. You deserve every reward in the world. You do more than that? Incredible. You want to be a better Jew? You are the biggest miracle of all. So let's not be so quick in judgment. Certainly not about ourselves. We tend to be very biased. We're either very cruel or too lenient. So let God judge.
Could you take another question?
Yes.
What can you do for someone who did already commit suicide? What can you do for the neshama, for their soul?
Okay, so first of all, in general, we have to remember when a soul leaves the body, it does not change. it remains the same person. It remains the same soul. It's not true that all souls become generic angels in heaven. Every soul retains its personality. It remains itself. So I say, if your grandfather had a good sense of humor, you can make jokes about him and he'll appreciate it. If he didn't have a sense of humor, then he still doesn't. Don't make jokes about him. He will not appreciate it. The souls retain their personality. They retain their memories, their experiences, and they certainly retain their relationships. Going back to the story in Argentina, I said to the woman, it's a good thing God didn't ask. What did that do to her? Why did that have the effect? Because she realized what she had said. If God would ask you to be the mother of your son, what would you have said? She said, I would have said absolutely not. And it struck her. How can a mother say such a thing? She went back to being a mother. Her grief, her trauma had derailed her. She stopped being the boy's mother and she became his griever, his mourner. But he is still 19 years old and he is still her son and she is still his mother and all she's doing is grieving. When she realized that she had just said no to her son, her maternal instinct kicked in and she went back to being his mother, which is correct. Just because your son is far away doesn't mean you're not the mother anymore. Doesn't mean he doesn't need his mother anymore. Doesn't mean he stopped being your son. You can have a relationship from a distance. So when she went back to being his mother, she went back to being alive. That's the first thing we need to know. If God forbid a child commits adultery, commits suicide, if a son, a daughter commits suicide, you have the right to stop being his mother or her mother? How can you do that? A child always needs their mother. Always, forever and ever. Particularly a child who was so unhappy that he had to kill himself. So what can you do for the soul of somebody who killed themselves? Stay related. Don't quit. That's all the soul needs. So let me tell you another story. Not long ago, I was invited to speak in Mexico City. I land. The flight was not enjoyable. I've got a headache. I need to get to the hotel room. So the people there pick me up. I'm in the car. We're driving to the hotel. And the driver says, this is not Argentina. We're not going to force you to make a stop on the way. We're taking you straight to the hotel. I said, that's so nice. Thank you. He says, at the hotel, there's a couple waiting to talk to you. They've had a terrible tragedy. Yeah, we're going straight to the hotel. I said, can it wait an hour? No. They're about to leave the country and they won't talk to any other rabbis. They'll talk to you, and you just have to, and they're in a hurry. So again, what can I do? They're waiting for me there. So we sit down. The nicest young couple you can imagine. What was their tragedy? A 6-year-old daughter died of an aneurysm, totally out of nowhere. And they weren't home. The parents weren't home when it happened. They are so devastated. He used to be active in the synagogue. He used to put on tefillin. They observed Shabbat. Not anymore. He's angry at God. He says, I love God. Why would he do this to me? So he doesn't want to hear from rabbis anymore. He's heard all their answers and all their explanations. It doesn't work. He doesn't want to put on tefillin anymore. He doesn't want to keep Shabbat anymore. In fact, he wants to get away from the community, so he's leaving the country. He showed me a picture of his little girl. I almost fainted. Literally, I got dizzy. Such an angelic, beautiful little girl. It was horrible. So I knew that I had to say something that he hadn't yet heard. So I asked him, has your daughter visited you yet? He was a little taken aback by that. He said, yes, twice. I said, what did your daughter tell you? He said, she didn't say anything. She just appeared and she smiled, letting me know that she's okay. So I said, why would she come twice? He didn't know. I said, it seems to me she's trying to tell you something in addition to her being okay. She's trying to tell you that she would be okay if you'd let her. She's 6 years old. And you're grieving and you're broken and you can't go on with your life because of her. She can't handle this. She can't take that kind of responsibility. She's 6 years old. And she ruined your life. She needs her father. She needs her mother. Why did you quit on her? That whole conversation took 10 minutes. And the father said, should I put on the tefillin now or should I wait till I get home? Don't quit. Your child needs you more than they needed you before, and they needed you before a lot. So just be a father, be a mother. What can you do for your son? What can you do for your daughter? To hang all your grief on them? No. To feel disappointed in them? That's not nice. What does your child need? The same thing every child needs, your approval. Your child needs to hear you say to people, that was a great kid. I miss him. That's what any child needs. So don't do anything heroic. Just be a mother, be a father, and take care of your kid. It will bring great reward. particularly since all the souls in heaven are coming back to earth. As soon as Mashiach comes, which is imminent, they'll start coming back to earth, one at a time. And they will be your children. So don't quit on them. Talk nice about them. Every kid can use a compliment, approval. One more question, if there is.
Okay. If someone tries to commit suicide and Hashem gives them another chance, meaning they fail in the first attempt, can they do teshuva for that attempt, for trying?
Well, first of all, we always give credit to a person who attempts suicide and fails. We give them the credit or the benefit of the doubt. They meant to fail. It was half-hearted. To their credit. They say that when a person jumps off a bridge, the second they leave the bridge, they regret it. Every time. That regret is tshuva. So everyone who commits suicide has already done tshuva. And those who fail did tshuva by failing. By not doing something that was guaranteed to be fatal. And even sometimes when it is guaranteed and you don't die, it's because you really didn't want to. The healthy part of you was still strong. So the first thing is you give them credit. They already did tshuva. That is their tshuva, being alive. And they should give themselves some credit for that too. But even if they don't, even if they can't feel any kind of restraint, the fact is that God decided, not yet. I need you in the world. I need you to do your mission, and I'm going to protect you from your own mistakes. So one final urgent idea. When a person dies, we say, God loved them very much and took them to be near him. That is so un-Jewish. God loves you, so he gives you life. The more he loves you, the more life he gives you. Take you to himself? That's not love. Love means when he trusts you, when he relies on you to fulfill the mission that he needs you for, gives you a purpose and sends you to do something significant. That's love. Going home, I don't know, in a sense, it's like a kid who goes off to college, tries to make a life for himself, but fails and he comes home. That's not love. So we have to go with the Jewish concept. Heaven is not a better place than earth. He's not in a better place. He's in a safe place, a beautiful place. Not better. There's nothing better than having your soul in a body on earth. There's nothing better. When your mission is done, when your time is up and you got to go someplace, okay, go to heaven. But you got to think of it as a retirement home. Nice, safe, pleasant, enjoyable. Not significant and meaningful. That's only here. So there is no better place than earth There's no better mission than the one you're given. And that's why all souls will come back to their bodies, because heaven is nice for a while, but you get kind of bored. You want to be back doing something, accomplishing something for God. In heaven, God takes good care of you. But you want to take good care of God. You want to fulfill his purpose, his mission. And his mission is to bring him down to earth, not to get yourself to heaven. That's the major difference between Christianity and Judaism. The goal in Christianity is to get yourself to heaven. The goal in Judaism is to bring God down to earth, because that's where he wants to be. So we should all have good news. We should all succeed in our individual missions. We should all take our mission as a compliment. And we should all be thankful that God doesn't ask, because it would be very embarrassing when we say absolutely not to the most significant things that life can possibly give us. Spread the word. Thank you so much for listening. And let's get busy. Make the world better. We didn't ask for the task, but we're very grateful for it.